Imagine this. Imagine a being barely taller than a child, skin the colour of ash, a mouth that barely moves, and eyes so large they seem less like organs and more like windows. For decades, thousands of people across different countries, different cultures, and people who have never met have described the same thing. Not monsters, not gods, but watchers. Tonight, we're not asking if aliens exist, we're asking why this one keeps coming back. Welcome to the Greys. They are the most reported non-human entities in modern history, the most consistent and somehow the most ignored. From isolated farmhouses to highways in the middle of the night, to military encounters and to alleged abductions, including medical examinations, missing time and memories that don't surface until years later. The Greys appear again and again and again. Some believe they are biological beings, flesh and blood visitors from another star system. Others believe they are something else entirely, artificial bodies controlled from somewhere far away. And some believe the truth is far more unsettling, that they may not be extraterrestrial at all, but something far closer. This is the first episode in the new Darklight series, a structured deep dive into reported alien species, examined one entity at a time. Each episode focuses on a single type, their reported origins, their characteristics, their encounters with humanity, and the theories that attempt to explain them. This episode is part 1, The Greys. If you're new here, welcome. This is where the series begins. In this episode, we're going to strip the noise away. We'll explore where the Greys are said to come from, what witnesses across decades consistently report about their appearance and behaviour, how modern discussions around UFO phenomena focus heavily on craft and encounters, while leaving the question of who or what might be behind them unanswered. And finally, the unsettling theory that the Greys may not be explorers at all, but observers running a long experiment. Believers say they're studying us. Skeptics say they're psychological projections. But both sides agree on one thing. If the Greys are real, they've been here far longer than we're comfortable admitting. So, the Greys, the origins, where are they said to come from? When people talk about the origins of the Greys, one location appears more than any other. A distant binary star system, approximately 39 light years from Earth. This idea didn't begin online. It didn't start with documentaries or social media. It actually dates back to the early 1960s, long before UFO culture entered the mainstream. The Betty and Barney Hill case. In 1961, Betty and Barney Hill reported one of the first widely publicised alien abduction experiences. After returning home from a trip, they experienced missing time, anxiety, and recurring nightmares. Years later, under hypnosis, Betty described being shown a star map, not a flat diagram, but a three-dimensional pattern of stars. She claimed it represented where the beings came from and where they travelled. At the time, the drawing meant nothing. There was no labels, no famous constellations, and no obvious reference points, just a pattern. So years later, astronomers noticed something unsettling. The pattern Betty drew closely resembled a real binary star system that was not commonly discussed or mapped in popular astronomy at the time. Supporters argue this raises a difficult question. How did a civilian with no background in astronomy describe a stellar configuration that had not yet entered public awareness? Skeptics argue coincidence, pattern recognition, suggestion under hypnosis. And that argument does matter because hypnosis is unreliable. So here's what we actually know. We do not know what any planets in that system look like. We do not know if life exists there, and we do not know if intelligence evolved there. There are no confirmed oceans, no cities, and no artificial signals. But what we do know is this: the stars themselves are similar to our sun, and they are older, which does matter. Older star systems have had more time for planets to stabilise, for life to emerge, and for intelligence to evolve. If intelligent life were to arise anywhere nearby, this is exactly the kind of system scientists would consider plausible. Now, skeptics argue that the Zeta Reticule connection is coincidence. They point to unreliable memory, suggestibility under hypnosis, and humanity's tendency to see meaning where none exists. And they might be right, but even today, when witnesses describe encounters with the Greys, they don't describe invasion. They describe navigation, observation, and monitoring. But origin is only part of the puzzle. To understand what the Greys might want, we first need to understand what they are. So, let's look at the characteristics of what witnesses describe. Across decades of reports, descriptions of the Greys remain strikingly consistent. No dramatic variation and not mythological exaggeration. There is consistency. Witnesses commonly describe beings between 3 and 4.5 feet tall, with thin, fragile-looking bodies, long limbs, and disproportionately large heads. Their skin is usually described as grey or ash-coloured, smooth, sometimes slightly textured, sometimes described as synthetic rather than biological. No visible hair, no visible reproductive organs, and minimal facial expression, as if appearance was never the priority. So let's break it down into a couple of subsections. The eyes are always mentioned, large, black, almond-shaped, often described as glossy, reflective, almost lens-like. Some witnesses believe that eyes aren't eyes at all, but coverings. Others describe the sensation that the eyes don't just observe, they interface, as if being watched also means being examined from the inside. So the Greys and communication. The Greys rarely speak. Instead, witnesses describe telepathic communication, complete thoughts transmitted instantly. So there's no sound, no mouth movements, and no conversation, only instruction. Messages are often described as calm, emotionless, but very authoritative. So the Greys' behaviour and temperament. The Greys are rarely described as aggressive, but they are almost never described as compassionate. Witnesses often say they weren't cruel, but they weren't kind. They appear focused on tasks, procedures, and outcomes. Emotion appears to be irrelevant. Technology. Technology associated with the Greys is described as seamless. No visible controls, no buttons, no wires, and no noise. Craft interiors are often curved, metallic but warm, and softly lit. Control appears mental, as if machines respond to intention rather than touch. If this is what the Greys are, then the real question isn't how they look, it's why they keep taking us. Most encounters begin the same way. A quiet night, a familiar place, a sudden interruption. A bright light, an inability to move, a sense of calm that feels artificial. Fear often comes later, when memory begins to return. One of the most consistent elements is missing time. Hours unaccounted for, clocks jumping forward, and journeys ending without memory of the middle. In many cases, memories don't surface until years later. Now, we all want to know about the Greys and the examination. When memories do surface, the details repeat. A flat surface, multiple Greys, silent observation. No explanation, no consent. Procedures often focus on the head, the nervous system, and the reproductive biology. Pain is sometimes reported, so is emotional detachment. Now, in many repeated abductions, many individuals report multiple encounters across their lifetime. Some say it began in childhood, others report family members experiencing similar events. This suggests selection, not randomness. Some abductees report marks, nosebleeds, headaches, anxiety, and sleep paralysis. Skeptics argue psychosomatic causes. Believers argue the body remembers even when the mind does not. So, if the encounters are real and the behaviour is consistent, the final question becomes unavoidable. So here's some theories on what they might be. Biological extraterrestrials. The most straightforward explanation. The Greys are biological beings from another star system, studying humanity with clinical detachment, observation without empathy. The next theory is artificial beings or drones. The Greys are not the intelligence, but the tools. Engineered biological bodies, designed minds, sent to do work their creators won't. And the last theory, future humans. Perhaps the most unsettling theory, that the Greys are us. Future humans altered by time, environment and technology. In this view, the encounters aren't experiments, they're corrections. Now we've got to look at the skeptical view. Skeptics point to sleep paralysis, false memory and cultural reinforcement. And they may be right, but skepticism struggles with one problem: independent repetition. If the Greys are imaginary, they reveal something profound about the human mind. But if they are real, humanity may not be alone, may not be sovereign, and may not be fully informed about its place in the universe. And perhaps most unsettling of all, we may already be part of something we never agreed to. The Greys don't announce themselves, they don't conquer, and they don't explain. They observe, they record, and then they leave. And whether they are visitors, creators, or reflectors of our own future, one thing remains consistent: they are watching. If you've made it this far, please remember to like, subscribe, and ring the bell. It genuinely helps Darklight to grow and allows these deep dives to continue. So until next time, remember, question everything, keep safe, and keep one eye open. Toodles.